of those who made our freedoms possible. No words are adequate to console those who have lost their loved ones in service of our nation. But we can pause as individuals and offer them our thoughts and our prayers. I can think of nothing worse than the mother or the father who received the folded flag. I can think of nothing worse than the children who know their fathers or mothers only by a photograph. And as we share that grief among us, we must also remember the true heroes who are here and who place this nation above all else. Honoring those who gave their life in defense of freedoms, how hard can that be? How difficult to stop one day out of the year and search out that place where our heroes are buried, or search out those gathering places such as Angel Fire and honor our fallen heroes. How hard can that be? Yet for me, for many years, it was impossible. There was too much hurt. There was too many unanswered questions. And there was too much self-imposed guilt. And as veterans, you know what I'm talking about when we talk about survivor's guilt. Why not me? I accepted my death more than once, and yet here I stand. Why not me? Why my brother who is in the same foxhole with me? Every generation has their memorials. The World War II memorial, the Korean War memorial, and my generation is the walls in Washington, D.C. Yet I couldn't go. I could not become part of that. To me, the wall was nothing more than a cold, miserable black piece of granite that had the names of my brothers on it. And yet one day, the call came. They said, Lieutenant Ali, it's time. Let's go. And three of us gathered about 4 o'clock in the morning because I didn't want to be there around anybody else, and we went to the wall. And as I walked down that incline, and I was headed straight toward panel 43E, which has 20 men that were killed October in the Battle of Fire Base Jaeger. 20 of my men are on panel 43E. And the wall became alive, and the wall had a spirit. And as I stand before you today, that same spirit is here. I can feel that spirit. And then I began to realize why I could not honor my fallen comrades. How could I pay them the proper respect that they deserve if I could not even heal myself? And so my journey began to heal myself because I wanted to dedicate myself to my fallen brothers and to you, my Vietnam brothers. But I couldn't do it if I couldn't even talk to myself. And that's why I'm willing to stand before you today, and I'm willing to bare my soul, and I'm willing to tell it like it is. Because I hope someone out in the audience today will say, hey, maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe I'm not alone. And maybe there is hope. If a sheepherder's son from the red desert of Wyoming can stand up and do this, then by God I can too. I would like to shed some light on how I feel our society looks at those who serve in the military. The colonel so eloquently talked about the number of people who are willing to serve. That number's been batted around. It's probably somewhere between 1% and 5%. In the overall scheme of things, that's a very small number. And to put it to another way, if you were walking the campaign trail, or you are out with your son or daughter, or you're selling Girl Scout cookies, or you're going door to door, you're going to knock on between 250 and 200 doors before somebody's going to open that door and say, "Hi, I'm a veteran. And I served this country, and I stood up and I took the oath. I took that oath of office that I will give my life for this country if necessary." That's a very, very small number. And perhaps in the overall scheme of things, maybe because that number is so small, far too often we as a society look the other way. We don't want to know the price of war. We don't want to know what it takes for those 2 to 5% to give their lives so the other 95% can enjoy the freedoms. We don't want to know. I can hear it like it was yesterday. My neighbors leaning over the fence talking to my parents in Laramie, Wyoming, and the conversation would go something like this. I remember Lee before he went Vietnam, and I remember Lee so plain because him and all the neighborhood boys would go out in the vacant lot and they would play ball by the hour. And I loved watching those kids play ball. They were so carefree. What a life. I know Lee's back from Vietnam because I've seen him. But I have not seen him out playing ball. Why doesn't Lee just go out into the street and play ball? Well, you see, it's not that easy. A vast majority of our veterans who come back from combat, they come back wounded. The physical wounds you can see, but what about the emotional wounds? Those emotional wounds can hurt just as hard and they can take just as big a toll on somebody's life. And yet you can't see those emotional wounds. Just go play ball. You see that young man prior to Vietnam, the only thing on his mind was hitting the next home run, or he was thinking about the prom that night and how he was going to dance into the moonlight and put his arms around the beautiful cheerleader. And yet a year later, those same arms are wrapped around a bleeding and dying comrade. Just go play ball. How do you do that? I would like, if you would, please come back with me in time. As I stare out into the darkness, I can see a banana grove about 30 meters in front. The enemy's in that banana grove. I know they are, because I can feel them. Our backs are to the river. We're dug in, and we're ready for a fight. I can feel the enemy in combat. Your senses become so keen that you can feel the enemy. And the hair on my neck and the hair on my shoulders begins to stand. And I'm getting keyed up. And there, just when the breeze is right, you can smell the enemy. I swear to God, you can smell the enemy. And I can smell the nukmon, the fermented dripping of rotted fish that they pour over their rice. And when they get excited, that oozes from their pores, and you can smell the nukmon. And I look down my line of my 35 recon men, and we're dug in, and we're ready. And I'm looking at every one of them, and I'm looking into their eyes, and I'm saying, my God, tonight, we're not all going to live. In the morning, who's going to be here and who's going to be gone? And just then the battle begins, and the rockets come flying into my position, and the mortars come into my position, and it's an all-out frontal attack. My God, there must be 200 to 250 of them. And as they rush through the reeds, they're screaming at the top of their lungs, "GI, you die. GI, we will kill you tonight, and on they come." My radio operator, whose name was Don Westfall, shot right straight through the chest. He has a sucking chest wound and he can't get his air. My forward observer to my left is shot in the head. I'm covered with blood and I'm sweating and I sit up and it's over. The battle's over. I'm soaking wet. Because you see, that battle wasn't 40 years ago in Vietnam. That battle was in the quiet of my own bedroom 5 nights ago. The enemy still controls this. I cannot pay proper respect to those who have lost their lives until I learn to do it myself. So how do I do that? My poor wife, sitting right here of 40 years, I have ruined more of her night's sleep than you can imagine. And I get up and I would take pen and I would go to the kitchen and I would pen my memories and I would take them up and I would fold them and I would put them so tight in a nice little ball, and then I would put them into what every veteran in this room has, that secret trunk. You got that place that nobody can look. When you put all of your memories and all of your medals and all of your stuff and you put it in that trunk. And then you close the closet door, and then you put a lock on the door, and then you put another lock on the door, and you think, if I can just get it out of my mind, it's gone. The bad news, my brothers, is it's not gone. It's there. And as long as you leave it in that closet unraveled, at some point, it's going to come out. And when it begins to come out, you better learn to deal with it. And there has been a point in my life I thought, my God, Lee Alley, the best thing you can do is go jump off a bridge. How do I heal myself? Where do I go? You see, veterans have this little thing going. If you weren't there, if you didn't feel it, if you didn't smell it, if you didn't touch it, you don't understand, and I'm not going to tell you. So we keep it inside. And we bottle it up. And it festers. And then through osmosis or some miracle, our families and our wives begin to suffer from the post-traumatic that we have. It goes through the family. Who am I going to talk to? One day I was sitting there and I thought, you know what, I remember I was out on patrol and it was that same guy, Don Westfall. He sat down, we took a little break and we're sitting there, we were on patrol, and he looked at me and he said, Lieutenant Alley, do you like me? I said, Don, I love you, brother. He said, well, I hope so. Because, Lieutenant, friendships that are forged in combat are like marriage vows. Till death we part, you are stuck with me for life. One night I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought I had broken my marriage vows. Not to my wife, but I broke all my vows to my brothers. I had done and I had hid. I was their leader. What the hell kind of a leader runs and hides and abandons his men? So I began a quest to find them. The problem is I knew exactly where they were. As you see, every Hollywood movie and every book on Vietnam that I touched said, if you're a Vietnam veteran, you're a drugged out bum. You're a baby killer, you're a this and you're a that. And if you want to find any help, just go down to the local saloon and they'll be passed out in a corner. And I said, I can't do that. I can't look at them like that. I knew where they were, but I couldn't go look at them. One day I thought, you know what? I better go find him. Because if that's where he is, I'm going to get him out of there and I'm going to help him. I found a guy named Jim Deister. The battle that I described to you was real. It's the Battle of Firebase Cudgel. Of the 35-man reconnaissance unit, the next morning there was 8 of us left. Jim Deister was in that battle. He was shot right straight through the head. The next morning we took him across the river. I laid him on the bank and I told the helicopter, do not put him on the helicopter. I've got so many wounded men. We've got to get everybody out of here. He put him last because he's going to die anyway. Those are the kind of awful decisions that you make. And yet here was Jim standing before me in Salina, Kansas. His head is terribly misshapen. He can't hear. He has hearing aid packs. And I'm looking at Jim, and I said, Jim, you're alive. He said, yes, sir, I am. I said, what are you doing with your life? He said, Lieutenant Alley, life is so good. I have my master's degree in counseling. I'm the head of vocational rehabilitation for the state of Kansas. I said, Jim, you got a hole in your head. He said, I know that. He said, what are you doing with your life, Lieutenant Alley? I said, well, the Buckhorn Bar in Laramie, Wyoming has a reserved seat for me. Suddenly I thought to myself, maybe I had bought into a bunch of crap. And so I began to find that one of the next guys I found Don Westfall, the guy sucking chest wound. He has one arm that he can't move, and he's a retired auto mechanic now. And he laughs and he goes on, he said, I'm the only one-armed auto mechanic alive. And he said, I love it. I carried the guy that carried the M60 for me on point October 14th, 1967, hit a booby trap, blew off his right foot. I said, what are you doing with your life? He said, I'm a mailman. I said, you don't have a foot. He said, I know, but Lee, they make fake feet. And then the next guy that I met started to put this whole thing into perspective. And everywhere I go, when I talk, I take one of these pots with me, because you see this guy is a potter. And he sits at his pottery wheel in Westmoreland, Kansas, and he makes anything that you can make on a potter's wheel, he'll make with you, whether it's a bowl or a plate or a vase. And I take these around and I show them to people, and they look at that and they say, well, big deal. I can make that. My buddy, the potter, is blind, has no hands. He hit a booby trap in Vietnam. Bless his heart, he was a Marine. We got to forgive him. And he sits at the potter's wheel and he makes pottery all day long. And so I went out to Westmoreland, Kansas, because I wanted to meet this guy. I heard about him. And so he said, come on, Lee, let's go out to my shop. We go out to the shop, and he gets the block of clay, and he takes it over to the potter's wheel, and he puts it on the potter's wheel, and it begins to spin, and we're sitting there lying to each other, you know, like veterans do. And, well, you should have seen what I did. Oh, God, you should have seen what I did. Anyway, we're sitting there lying. And out of that mound of clay, this blob of clay begins to take shape, and he turns to me and he said, Lee, isn't that beautiful? I said, you know what, that is beautiful, but I got bad news for you. You're blind. How do you know it's so beautiful? He said, Lee, you're an idiot. You don't have to have eyes to see. I can see the beauty in what I am building. I can see that I'm going to leave something that will last forever. When you open your eyes in the morning, Lee, what are you going to see? I had to stop and think about that. And as he began to work the clay, the pot began to take shape, and he looked at it and he said, you know, that thing is almost finished. But he said, it's not quite perfect. I can't get this little deal done here. He said, when I first started making pots, I just had 2 stumps. And every time my stump would hit the block of clay or try to do something, it would knock it off. I was having a terrible time, and I was afraid they were going to run out of clay in Kansas. So I went to the VA and I had them do this surgery where they split the bones up to the elbows, and they graft the skin around, and now I have tweezers. And with tweezers I can make pots. But I can only get them so good because I can't do the finish. Or I can't make the spout if you wanted a little picture. And I said, well, how are you going to do that? This guy's name is Bill Reconnecting. I said, Bill, how are you going to do that? And he said, well, you know what you do is you get in your bag of tools and you pull out another tool. And I said, well, Bill, you're out of tools. said, no, watch this. And he bends over the potter's wheel, and with his lips and his tongue, he finishes his pots. Bill Wedekind, you ruined my day. How in the world can I go on about life and the old woe is me when you sit there, blind, no hands, and make pottery? And his advice to me was, he said, Lee, you better just get over it. And so I began to think, what are my tools in my toolbox? And as I look out at the audience today, I see so many people that have tools in their toolbox that they have not even thought about taking out. I guarantee you sometime between now and the next 48 hours, probably everybody in this room is going to be hit by something. They're going to say, I can't do that. Or I don't think that I can accomplish that. Or I don't, yada. Well, tell it to Bill. And open your toolbox and pull out those tools. What kind of tools are in your toolbox? What about these three? What about love as a verb that requires action? What about remembrance? What about vision? Because you see, what I can envision is Doc Westfall going into his tool bag, and he pulled out these things, and he pulled out a vision, and he pulled out love that was going to be a verb, and he was going to build something. And he took those tools, and off of his potter's wheel, the Angel Fire Memorial began to rise. He took those tools and he did that for the love of his son. But as I look out here, brothers, sisters, he did it for all of them. Coming here has been an incredible experience for me. I have felt the love. What an incredible place. Get in your toolbox.